just wait till to see if anyone's available to join. I'm gonna keep doing these early in the morning. Man. So as you may have seen in the title, I'm going to be talking about One Piece and Nintendo, which is an odd combination, but I figured, what the heck. I'll give it about maybe a few more minutes. So, ow, sorry. So, I had a thought yesterday. Well, not a thought that I had yesterday. It's one I've had before. And it sort of addresses the whole, I don't know if you'd call it an argument or I guess the best way to put it is it's a controversial topic, which is the whole back and forth between Shanks and Mihawk fans regarding who the strongest swordsman is, and if Mihawk is the strongest swordsman, how can Shanks be superior to him when he primarily fights for the sword? Now, my argument has always been that titles in One Piece are not necessarily absolute. For example, when we look at Buggy, he is one of the Yonko, but he didn't acquire territory like the others. He isn't particularly strong like the others, and one of the things that's more or less required to be one of the Pirate Emperors is an immense amount of strength. But Buggy's not like that. So when I look at the World's Strongest Swordsman title, I don't take it as literally as most do. And the reason for that is because let's look at Whitebeard. Regarded as the strongest man, right? And yet, Roger was stated to have been his rival, who also became Pirate King. Now, you would think that the strongest man would have been Roger, and who knows, maybe it's possible that that title was his until his unfortunate passing. But the only one we know was considered to be the strongest man in the world was White. We don't know how he definitively obtained that title. We don't know if it's because of the fact that Roger passed away and the only one seen as top dog by process of elimination had to be Whitebeard. And that's kind of my main argument for the whole Shanks versus Mihawk debate. We simply don't know how Mihawk acquired that title specifically. Since we know the two of them had fought countless times, never beating each other, and this would have been before Shanks acquired his Emperor status, it stands to reason that the Shanks we had, that Shanks from that point in time was considerably weaker than he is now. Obviously, one of the main arguments for Mihawk being stronger is that, well, Shanks lost an arm, and when you lose an arm, you're not going to be as effective in combat. Not necessarily. There's nothing to my knowledge in One Piece that suggests the loss of a limb impacting the strength of your haki. Also, hi, Devin. Didn't mean to ignore you. For all we know, Shanks' haki could have grown exponentially from the days when he and Mihawk would have their fights. We've also seen Shanks being capable of things that we may not have thought possible before, such as using conquerors from a considerably long distance to attack someone. Now, it's my belief that when he hit Green Bull with that what actually happened was it wiped out his Devil Fruit. It kind of short-circuited it. Other people might see that as, well, he lost control of himself because he became fearful or intimidated. But that wouldn't make sense because we've never seen an admiral be affected by conquerors in that way. And even if my belief that admirals are not equal to each other is correct, it still shouldn't be that much of a gap to where an admiral can be affected by somebody's conquerors as if they were fodder. That just wouldn't make any sense to me. Therefore, I believe that what actually happened was he was both intimidated and his Devil Fruit power was pretty much short-circuited. I've seen people try to argue that counts as a sword attack. Yes, I realize he drew his sword and channeled the haki into the sword and sent it through it, but he did not slash. He did not thrust. He did not move his sword in any way outside of pointing it. So I don't think it should count as a sword attack. I compare it more to a wizard using a staff and channeling magic into that staff. The But obviously in this case, it's not magic, it's Haki. Just because he channeled it through the sword, to me, does not mean that it automatically counts as a sword feat. A sword feat is using the sword as an actual weapon. This isn't Bleach. Swords don't have special powers. They're literally just weapons and nothing more. And Mihawk has not been shown doing anything like that. That wasn't even a physical attack. That was more of a spiritual offensive. And Oda obviously chose to show Shanks doing that over Mihawk. Also, the fact that Shanks wants to go and find the One Piece suggests that he's more ambitious than Mihawk. And the more ambitious you are, the more you tend to be superior to your peers in the long run. And we've obviously seen that with Luffy. Yes, he's the main character, but he has a lot of ambition. And he's driven by that ambition to get stronger and stronger and stronger to accomplish his goals. I see no reason as to why that would be different for Shanks or anyone else. Now, that is not evidence or proof of Shanks somehow being superior to Mihawk. Because somebody could say, well, yeah, he did do that, but it didn't actually deal any damage. It was intimidation. It was more of an aura flex. It wasn't an actual attack. And that's fair. Considering Conqueror's Haki is an ability, and that is a way in which it was utilized, I would argue that it counts as an attack, even though it didn't, physically damage Green Bull in any way. He still hit him with something. And it was a very specific way in which he used Conquerors in that instance. It's not like when they splitting the sky, it's not as though when we see two conquerors split the sky that they're doing so has any impact on their fight. It's a flex, that's all it is. Shanks wasn't flexing when he did that. His Haki actually did something to Green Bull. Therefore, I think it qualifies as an attack. And it suggests to me that he may be able to do things with Conquerors that Mihawk can't. That goes beyond using a sword to fight. It could be that when he lost his arm, he had to figure out ways to counteract that to make up for the fact that he was no longer going to be as capable in a sword fight because, he's got a huge sword. It's clear that when you have a sword that big, a two-handed swing will always be much stronger than a one-handed swing. If it was a shorter sword, then I don't think his swordsmanship would necessarily be impacted at all. If he was one of those sword fighters who only focused on fighting with one hand, never used two hands, then I don't think it would have impacted it at all. I know that's completely unrealistic, but then again, we're talking about anime and manga here. And we're also talking about a series that is fantasy. Suspension of disbelief. Um, so, um, apologies. I seem to struggle with getting my thoughts out there, and it's probably why I should have written this down first. I mean, this is a stream; it's off the cuff. You know what you're getting. I would hope. Now, now someone could say, okay, well, that could just mean that Oda's gonna have Mihawk come out and do things that are even more impressive. Okay, that's fair, but let me ask you this. Why would it make any sense for Zoro's end goal to be stronger than somebody that Luffy is going to have to surpass before he can be considered the strong? He's the main character. Zoro is not going to surpass Luffy. So it literally makes no sense for Zoro's end goal to be stronger than somebody that Luffy is going to have to surpass before being regarded as the strongest pirate in the One Piece world. Unless somebody was to suggest this insane idea where Luffy's going to fight Mihawk instead. Could he do that? Sure, but I think a lot of people would be angry if Luffy was the one that defeated Mihawk and Zoro fought Shanks instead. But there's no guarantee that we're even going to get a Mihawk and Zoro fight. It's possible that that may never happen. Hopefully that's not going to be the case, but so much has happened and Mihawk has had very little impact on the story. And given where we are now, I just don't see where Zoro and Mihawk fight can fit into the story without making it feel too cluttered. It's entirely possible that Mihawk may die or be defeated and captured long before they could ever have their fight. Which would suck, but so there's another thought I had, and there's nothing to back this up, but when Shanks did that thing where he pulls out his sword and sends, I consider it to be like a beam, not a wave, because it kind of shoots out as a lightning bolt and strikes his opponent, which in this case would have been Greenbull, and then has a direct an effect on him. I now think that opens up the doors for using Conquerors offensively without it being put into an attack. So more or less what I'm thinking is something along the lines of what Pain could do with I think it's Shinra Tensei, where he would open up his palm and then he would blast you with some kind of, I don't know if it was magnetic, but it was basically a telekinetic blast. I don't see why that couldn't be possible in One Piece. I mean, you could argue that to some extent we've already seen that. Um, we've seen that. We've seen Devil Fruit users being capable of performing such a feat. Sengoku and Kuma. Um, there may be others that I'm not thinking of or can't remember, but that's at least two. We've seen an attack that uses conquerors send out, I don't want to say, sort of function as a ranged attack. I would argue that Galaxy Impact kind of counts as this, because when he threw the punch, he was a pretty good distance away from those buildings. And it seemed to, almost like a shotgun, send the force of that out of his fist and hit the buildings and blow them away. So why could it not be possible for somebody to do that same thing without a punch, without any kind of force behind it? Why couldn't the energy itself be gathered into a single point and then unleashed all at once? You know, Conquerors is supposed to be seemingly the strongest form of Haki, which is a bit odd considering only two of them can be used offensively. All observation allows you to do is predict and see things coming before they happen. Observation cannot be used to deal damage. It's just more of a it assists you in combat, but it's not as though you can use observation to harm someone. So calling Conquerors the strongest form of Haki to me is a bit weird. If all three could be used offensively, and Conquerors had the greatest offensive capabilities, then yeah, I'd agree with that. But as of right now, there's nothing to suggest that observation can be used to hurt someone. And it wouldn't make sense, considering it's basically a low-level form of telepathy. It's mind reading. It's telepathy without the ability to influence somebody's thoughts. I feel like if Oda really wanted to do that with observation, he wouldn't have called it observation. He would have called it something else. He might have called it I don't know. Because, you know, armament conquers. Maybe he would have called it... I don't want to say influence, because that doesn't really have a ring to it, but maybe something along those lines. But anyway, so what would truly make Conquerors seem superior to the other two forms of Haki? Because so far, outside of knocking out fodder, which is not particularly impressive, and that one instance where Shanks used it to affect Green Bull and do whatever he did there, and using it to amplify the strength of your armament Haki, Conquerors doesn't really have much going for it. Which is why I have to assume that there is a lot more to see from Conquerors that just hasn't been unveiled. This is obviously all just headcanon. I have no evidence to necessarily back this up. But there has to be a reason why it's so incredibly rare and regarded as such a big deal. When Luffy used it unknowingly, unconsciously, subconsciously, did I say unconsciously? Subconsciously during Marineford, and you saw the reaction of each admiral, and two of them, one of them looked horrified, which I believe may have been Kizaru. You could see on their faces how it wasn't just shock. It seemed like they were legitimately scared of something that we had no understanding of. A sign that something big might be coming. And they basically, it might have been Kuzan that said, "No way, he's this strong." Um, speaking, talking, and he was talking about Conqueror's Haki specifically. So if that is what had that kind of an impact on the admirals, there must be something more to it than what we've already seen. And yes, it will make Kaido seem way less impressive in time than he already does. But I expected that. Because in a series like One Piece, characters only get stronger as the series progresses, and that goes for future enemies too. Kaido was never going to be the strongest in the series. He was never going to be the strongest pirate. I mean, maybe while he was alive, he was for a set period of time, but when you look at Whitebeard, there's no way that Kaido was stronger than Whitebeard. Maybe when he, maybe as a result of him getting older and then being affected by illness, that may have been the case. But before that, no way. I just don't see that making any sense. He also hadn't fully mastered the power that he possessed. We don't know how good he was with seeing the future. It seemed to pale in comparison to Katakuri, if I'm being honest. Because if his observation was really that good, why wasn't he using it throughout that fight? And I understand that his personality was to let people beat up on him, to have a good time. I'm going to be honest with you, I despise that character trope. Because it just doesn't feel realistic to me. And it's not a good showcase of their overall strength. Especially when wow, I lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. I've got all these trolls posting disgusting comments in here, and I don't have any mods available to take care of that. Anyway. Now my cat's going to be a brat. Sorry about the... about getting off topic. Anyway. He hadn't yeah, as I was saying, I've never cared for that. Hey, hi, Mr. Remy. I've never cared for that trope where a character is so incredibly strong, but they have to hold themselves back because they want to make a fight last longer. That is not a good showcase of the strength they have, and it means that by the time they're actually ready to go all out, they've already accumulated a significant amount of damage, meaning that there's really no point in going all out at that stage because you've willingly nerfed yourself to decrease your chances of victory just because you want to have a good fight? No. I don't think a character like that should be the strongest. And it's not as though Kaido had some sort of healing power. If he had a superior version of Marco's ability to heal himself, maybe I could see that. But he doesn't. And yes, I know that Zoans heal faster, but we're not talking about healing fast. We're talking about full-on regeneration. The ability to, within seconds, heal off injuries. And Kaido didn't have that ability. And if he really is supposed to be the strongest, why wasn't he awakened? You mean to tell me that the strongest individual in the verse is gonna have a devil fruit, but not be awakened? Not have access to its most powerful form? And not even have the pinnacle of Haki? Because we're seeing things now that suggest Kaido was never even close to being the strongest. To be regarded as the strongest in a series where there's more advanced applications of the abilities you have access to, it's a real head scratcher. It's like saying that, and yes, I know there is a character who's like this, but it's like saying that the strongest character in Bleach, who is a captain, doesn't have a Bankai. Which is insane. Because Bankai is literally... Ow! Sorry, my cat's being a brat. My cat is being a brat. I am so sorry for this. She's biting me right now. Being nasty. I'm sure that'll make some people laugh, but it's not particularly funny when your cat is sinking her teeth into you to show you that she's upset over something. But anyway. So no, I don't buy that Kaido ever was or would have been intended to be the strongest character in One Piece. That aside, I think I'm hoping that kind of backs up the point I was trying to make. And I went on a huge tangent that pretty much went nowhere. But let's get back on track. The main point I was trying to make is that Shanks may display something She's being a brat again. I'm sorry about this, people. My cat is being a total jerk right now. You won't be able to see that because my camera's off, but every time I try to walk past, I get swiped at or bitten. I'm sure this would be absolutely hysterical if people could see it. So I personally believe that Shanks is going to show us things that Mihawk won't be capable of doing. Because everyone assumes that being the strongest swordsman literally means you are superior to everybody who fights with a sword. And while I have no doubt that Mihawk will be superior to Big Mom, it's not because he's a better swordsman than her. Her primary method of fighting didn't really involve using a sword. It involved using a devil fruit that gave her a sword. And she wasn't the type to sit down and train in using a sword. She wasn't the type that would have spent days and weeks and months perfecting her skills with a weapon. She was more of a brawler, like Luffy. Luffy's not a martial artist in the traditional sense. He can fight well, but he's really more. His fighting style is more akin to street fighting and anything goes. He's not dedicated to a specific form of combat, just like Big Mom. Even though she can, use her strength to swing a sword really hard and fast, does not mean that she is necessarily a swordsman. Well, in her case, a swordswoman because she's a woman. Um, you made me very angry, Cat. Sorry about that. I should have put that in the title. The things I was going to discuss and some random cat shenanigans, but I didn't think to. All right, sorry about that, folks. It would appear as though nobody's really interested in what I was just talking about. Um, but I wanted to give this channel more of a focus and talk about things that I like and kind of give you an insight into who I am as a person by presenting my different opinions on those subjects, because I don't think anybody has these same views that I do. Um, that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention, but I don't know. Maybe that was a mistake. That's pretty much all I wanted to say on One Piece, anyway. Especially since it was kind of ruined by my cat misbehaving here. She's not misbehaving. Probably shouldn't. I shouldn't have said it that way. But she doesn't. She's not nice when she tries to get my attention. Um, Also, apologies, I need to use the sink to wash my hands. I hope this is not too annoying to you. I guess I should have... I don't know. Hopefully in time I can figure out why some days I have more views and why on other days I don't. If I can figure that out, hopefully that'll allow me to get more viewers and more potential subs. So that was my little random, all over the place spiel on One Piece. I doubt it was particularly thought-provoking, but it's there if you want to listen to it. Hopefully there won't be any more of those obnoxious trolls saying disgusting things in this chat, but I'm not holding on to any hope. Come on, you need to move out of the way. You need to move out of the way. I was going to talk about something Nintendo related too, but I'm getting the feeling not many people would care to hear my thoughts on things that are Nintendo related. I'm sorry you got splashed just now. I'm just trying to fill your fountain up. So much for trying to include topics in my streams to potentially make them more interesting and get more views and subs. For that matter, I'm not exactly sure when the vast majority of people would even be up and available to watch a stream of mine, so that's not helping me out. I'm sure the algorithm is going to be negatively impacted by this choice, but I'm just not sure. I guess what I should have done is made a series of channels, all focusing on different topics, and just upload a video to each one every single day. And depending on which one has the most traffic, give that more focus than the others. It's also hard to do videos every single day because I'm in a situation where, I mean, it's not like I can't do that, but I don't live by myself, so I feel kind of limited in time. I would love to be able to make a series of videos each day and keep doing that until the numbers show me what people actually want. But I'm not really in a position to be able to be doing that. Yeah, I'll respond to that text later. I think it's going to be a shorter one today. Probably going to stop in maybe about 15 minutes. Might try again tomorrow, although I'm not sure. So, with that being said, I'll just have to edit out the. I'll just have to edit out Nintendo being in the name for this stream because I didn't get into anything related to that, and to put that in the title of a stream would be where a topic is not discussed would be disingenuous. So, want to thank all my viewers, all my subs, all my commenters. Appreciate everything you've been doing to help me grow. And until the next one, have a good day.